D4vd and Detective Morales never expected a quiet Thursday night to turn into the city's most baffling mystery: a Tesla parked in plain sight with a body hidden in the trunk and a trail of secrets only the sharpest eye could follow. It was an ordinary Thursday evening when the city seemed quieter than usual, streets dimly lit under flickering streetlights. Most people were tucked away in their homes, unaware of the darkness that had quietly settled over a normally bustling neighborhood. A Tesla, sleek and black, sat parked along a narrow lane, seemingly abandoned. Its presence was unusual not for the car itself, which was common enough, but for the way it stood there, untouched, its engine off, and no sign of anyone nearby. A passing jogger, moving at a slow pace, noticed the car as he turned a corner. Something about it didn't feel right. He slowed down, squinting through the dim light, feeling an instinctive unease he couldn't explain. As he got closer, a strange smell hit him, faint at first but unmistakable. He stopped, glanced around the empty street, and then, almost instinctively, called the authorities. The police arrived quickly, their lights casting a chaotic glow across the otherwise still street. Officers approached the Tesla cautiously, checking for any immediate threat. When they opened the doors, the interior appeared untouched, neat, almost pristine. But the trunk told a different story. A body, carefully wrapped in blankets, lay hidden inside. There was no sign of struggle in the vehicle itself, no blood or obvious damage, which suggested the person had been placed there intentionally and with knowledge of the surroundings. The discovery sent shockwaves through the local precinct. Questions raced through everyone's mind. Who had done this? Why was the car moved here, in this quiet street, in the middle of the night? And most importantly, who was the person inside? Detectives worked methodically, cordoning off the area, taking photos, and collecting evidence. Forensics began combing through the Tesla, scanning for fingerprints, hair samples, and any trace that might hint at the identity of the driver. Yet, the more they investigated, the more puzzling the case became. The car's GPS had been tampered with, erasing any records of its last few movements. Surveillance cameras from nearby buildings were mysteriously offline, leaving investigators with almost no leads. There was no ransom note, no indication of theft, and no obvious motive that could explain why anyone would go through such effort. The absence of clues only deepened the sense of unease surrounding the case. Local residents, awakened by the flashing lights of police cars, gathered at a distance, whispering in disbelief. Rumors began spreading instantly, social media buzzed with speculation, turning an already mysterious event into a viral sensation. The story of a Tesla parked on an empty street with a body in its trunk gripped the city's imagination. It wasn't just a crime scene, it was a puzzle, a dark riddle that seemed to taunt those trying to solve it. Amid the chaos, one thought lingered in everyone's mind: the question of how something so carefully hidden could appear so suddenly in plain sight without leaving any trace. The city had been thrown into suspense, the normal rhythm of life interrupted by a crime that seemed both random and deliberate. Little did anyone know, this was only the beginning, and the secrets hidden within that Tesla would unravel a story far more twisted and calculated than anyone could imagine. The case quickly drew attention beyond the local precinct. News of the Tesla and the body in its trunk spread like wildfire, reaching corners of the city where people normally paid little attention to crime. Amid the rising frenzy, a private investigator named D4vd arrived on the scene. Known for his unconventional approach and a reputation for solving cases that left police scratching their heads, D4vd carried an air of quiet confidence. He didn't rush in, instead he observed, while officers focused on the obvious fingerprints, tire tracks, and the car itself. D4vd's gaze lingered on the small, overlooked details. The streetlights flickering in uneven patterns, a faint scent that didn't match the body, the scuff marks on the edge of the trunk — these were clues the casual observer would miss. D4vd began retracing the Tesla's last known movements, but the task was more complicated than it seemed. The car's GPS had been tampered with, and nearby surveillance cameras had conveniently gone offline. There was no immediate record of who had driven it or where it had been taken. Yet D4vd noticed patterns others overlooked. The tire tracks near the street did not match the Tesla itself. They were from a larger vehicle, one capable of lifting or towing. The impression in the soft asphalt suggested deliberate placement, almost as if someone had moved the Tesla here with care and precision. It was an early sign that this was not a random act. It was planned with a level of patience few could muster. As D4vd dug deeper, he discovered inconsistencies that puzzled even seasoned detectives. The body showed no signs of struggle consistent with a forced entry into the Tesla. That meant the victim had likely known the person moving them, or at least had been coerced in a way that left no outward resistance. The methodical concealment suggested someone who had done this before or had studied how to avoid detection. Small details like the placement of the blankets and the lack of fingerprints on certain surfaces revealed a meticulous mindset. Whoever was behind this was careful, intelligent, and deliberate. While working through the scene, D4vd also began to consider motive. A crime of this nature was rarely random. A simple car theft or burglary would have left traces of desperation or haste. Here, everything pointed to control. The body, the car, and the empty street were all pieces in a carefully constructed puzzle. D4vd theorized that the person behind this wanted to delay discovery, manipulate perception, or perhaps send a message. Each clue, each anomaly became part of a larger narrative he was slowly piecing together. Even as the city buzzed with speculation, D4vd remained focused. He tracked small, often overlooked pieces of evidence: a loose thread on the blanket, a faint smear on the trunk handle, a fleeting reflection in a broken window nearby. It was in these tiny, almost invisible details that he sensed the story would reveal itself. With every observation, he moved closer to understanding not just who had moved the Tesla, but why. His approach was meticulous, patient, and unrelenting. Every detail mattered, and in D4vd's hands, even the smallest clue had the potential to crack the case wide open. The police were watching, reporters were waiting, and the city held its breath, unaware that a path to the truth was quietly forming before them. D4vd's investigation grew more complex as he began to trace the Tesla's journey in the hours before it was discovered. With GPS wiped and cameras disabled, he relied on alternative methods to reconstruct the vehicle's path. He examined traffic patterns, cross-referenced witness sightings, and followed subtle environmental clues. Small scraps of evidence, broken twigs caught in the tires, faint tire impressions on gravel, and subtle marks in the mud slowly revealed the car's unusual trajectory. The Tesla had traveled through areas rarely used at night, winding through back roads, industrial zones, and stretches of empty fields. Each stop along the way raised more questions than answers. His search led him to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. From the outside, it appeared ordinary, decrepit, and forgotten. Yet D4vd noticed traces of recent activity. Footprints of different sizes led toward and away from the entrance. Some were fresh, others partially worn down, indicating multiple visits over a short period. The warehouse was dark, silent, and empty at first glance, but subtle disturbances on the floorboards and a faint scent in the air suggested the presence of something or someone hidden within. It was clear the Tesla's journey had not been random. This place had served as a temporary stop, a hidden location where the car and its cargo could remain unnoticed. Inside the warehouse, D4vd discovered evidence that hinted at careful planning. Items scattered across the floor: a dropped glove, an empty energy drink. Faint tire tracks suggested someone had been working alone or in small numbers, moving quickly and deliberately. The arrangement of these items, combined with the tire impressions outside, revealed patterns that spoke of precision. Whoever had orchestrated this crime knew the terrain, the warehouse layout, and the need to leave minimal trace. It was not a crime of passion or impulsive violence, it was calculated and methodical. D4vd also noticed the lack of disturbance to the body inside the Tesla. This suggested that after the initial placement, the person had taken extraordinary care to avoid tampering or damage. The body had remained intact, the blankets carefully arranged, the trunk handled minimally. This level of caution pointed to a perpetrator who had anticipated scrutiny, someone who understood the consequences of leaving mistakes behind. The evidence was subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye, yet it painted a clear picture of someone experienced, someone determined to control every aspect of the situation. As the investigation progressed, D4vd began connecting these movements to a broader narrative. The Tesla's path, the warehouse, and the methodical handling of the body indicated a motive beyond simple concealment. It was as if the car itself, along with its dark secret, had been moved strategically to confuse, delay, or mislead investigators. Each step of the journey raised the possibility that this was more than a single crime. It could be part of a calculated plan with a larger purpose. D4vd realized that understanding the rationale behind these movements might hold the key to uncovering the identity of the person responsible. The deeper he delved, the more the shadows seemed to shift around him. Evidence was present but elusive, patterns hidden beneath layers of deception. Every discovery brought new questions, and every answer only hinted at the next stage of a carefully orchestrated sequence. The chase through abandoned streets, hidden warehouses, and silent fields created a tense rhythm to the investigation. D4vd understood that patience, observation, and relentless attention to detail were his only tools. Somewhere within the darkness of these overlooked paths lay the truth, and he was determined to follow it until it revealed the person who had moved the Tesla with the body in the trunk. D4vd's investigation took an unexpected turn when he traced one of the Tesla's stops to a small mechanic shop on the outskirts of the city. The shop looked ordinary from the outside, with faded signs and a few cars parked haphazardly. Most people would have walked past it without a second thought, but D4vd's instincts told him this place held answers. Inside, he found subtle but revealing evidence. A receipt for battery maintenance had been left carelessly on the counter. The name on it didn't match any registered owner of the Tesla, and when D4vd cross-checked records, the individual appeared to be entirely fictional. It was a deliberate attempt to create a false trail. The more he examined the shop, the more details began to form a clearer picture. Tools were meticulously organized, some showing signs of recent use. Tire marks and oil stains on the floor matched the Tesla's specifications, indicating the car had been serviced here recently. This suggested that whoever orchestrated the crime had knowledge not only of vehicles but of the inner workings of the city's quieter corners. The perpetrator had planned the route, the stops, and the manipulations with precision, leaving just enough traces to mislead those who didn't know what to look for. While reviewing the surrounding area, D4vd discovered evidence of additional movement. A network of alleyways and service roads connected the shop to abandoned buildings and hidden parking lots. It became clear that the person behind the Tesla's journey understood the city intimately. They used back roads and secluded locations to avoid detection, moving the car in a way that created a complex web of misdirection. Each stop, each subtle change in direction, was calculated to keep investigators guessing and prevent a straightforward trail from forming. D4vd also pieced together a timeline, linking the Tesla's movements to the disappearance of the victim. The body had been transported with care, kept undisturbed, and moved in a way that minimized risk of discovery. The attention to detail suggested a personal connection, someone who had a specific purpose and motivation beyond random violence. The care in handling the car and the body pointed to a methodical mind, someone willing to manipulate circumstances to maintain control and conceal their actions. It was a level of precision that spoke of prior planning and preparation. By connecting the mechanic's shop to previous stops and movements, D4vd identified a pattern in the perpetrator's behavior. They operated in silence, leaving minimal evidence, yet their choices revealed a hidden logic. The Tesla was not merely abandoned, it was a carefully positioned piece in a larger plan. The investigation showed that the crime was intentional, targeted, and orchestrated with forethought. Each layer of the journey, the warehouse, the abandoned streets, and the hidden service points added depth to the story, revealing a methodical strategy behind what initially seemed chaotic. D4vd began to sense the hidden connection between the perpetrator, the car, and the victim. Every step he uncovered, every subtle clue, painted a picture of someone calculating and meticulous. The evidence suggested the person knew the city, understood surveillance blind spots, and possessed a familiarity with vehicles and their movement. With each discovery, D4vd moved closer to understanding the motive, unraveling the carefully woven path that led to the Tesla. The case was no longer just a mystery, it was a deliberate act with hidden layers, each waiting to be uncovered. The deeper he delved, the more it became clear that every detail mattered and the truth was hiding in plain sight. D4vd's investigation reached its climax when the trail led him back to a quiet residential neighborhood, the kind of place where people trusted their doors to be locked and their streets to be safe. From the beginning, it seemed unlikely that a crime so calculated could be connected to such an ordinary area, but the evidence was undeniable. Surveillance footage from a nearby corner store, previously overlooked, revealed subtle movements, shadows crossing streets at odd hours, the Tesla appearing in the distance and then disappearing again. These fleeting glimpses formed a pattern that suggested deliberate manipulation. The car had not simply been abandoned, it had been moved multiple times to confuse anyone trying to follow it. As D4vd pieced together the sequence, he realized that the perpetrator was someone intimately familiar with the neighborhood, someone whose presence would not raise suspicion. Footprints, tire impressions, and minor disturbances in yards all pointed to a single individual who had orchestrated the Tesla's journey with precision. The realization hit that this person had been watching, waiting, and calculating every move to ensure that the investigation stayed one step behind. The level of forethought indicated planning over days, maybe even weeks, not a spur-of-the-moment decision. Evidence began to converge at a single location, the home of an unlikely neighbor, someone seemingly ordinary, with no criminal record and no obvious connection to the victim. Yet all clues pointed toward them: the meticulous handling of the Tesla, the careful manipulation of GPS and surveillance, and the strategic choice of the abandoned warehouse for temporary storage. D4vd noted that the suspect had managed to orchestrate a complex series of movements without leaving obvious traces, a feat that required both knowledge and cunning. Every small detail, the timing, the routes, the use of deserted roads demonstrated an almost obsessive level of control. Piecing together the motive proved more elusive. The meticulous nature of the crime suggested more than random violence or theft. D4vd considered possibilities: revenge, jealousy, or a secret the perpetrator desperately wanted to protect. The care with which the body had been concealed and transported indicated that this was not an act of panic. It was intentional, personal, and carefully calculated. The crime was as much about control as concealment. Every decision, from moving the Tesla multiple times to avoiding detection, revealed a mind focused on manipulation and secrecy. The final breakthrough came when D4vd cross-referenced the neighbor's daily patterns with the Tesla's movements. Small but critical inconsistencies aligned perfectly with the timeline of the vehicle's journey. It became clear that the suspect had orchestrated the entire sequence, moving the Tesla through abandoned streets, stopping at the warehouse, and finally leaving it in plain sight while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. The revelation stunned everyone involved. A person living mere blocks away had managed to manipulate events so completely that even trained investigators had struggled to trace the path. In the end, D4vd uncovered a shocking truth: the Tesla's movements, the body in the trunk, and the intricate web of misdirection were all part of a deliberate plan executed by someone who appeared ordinary on the surface. The crime was not random, nor was it chaotic. It was a calculated act by a person who understood the city surveillance systems and human perception. Every clue, every trace, and every overlooked detail had led to this conclusion. The mystery of the Tesla and the body in its trunk was solved, leaving the city stunned by the realization that sometimes the person responsible is closer than anyone could imagine, hiding in plain sight while orchestrating events with meticulous precision.